once you've worked in any corporate business for 5 years,
Yeah.
you've had every possible variation of slap and punch you're ever likely to receive. So you just roll with it. And also it's that thing of, once somebody's seen you drunk, you can't have a serious conversation. Once they've seen your bum hole, it's really difficult for anybody while you're reviewing their work for them to look at you seriously.
Yeah. You know, I walked away from advertising. It wasn't like, oh, I'd try and do that and do this on the side. I just had to go all in. They say actually sometimes when you've got to go do it for survival or there isn't a plan B, it is easier to change.
I think certain people who are often people who set up businesses can visualize it, and when you visualize it, it makes it so much easier to walk towards it, because some people just find it easier than others. And that's why I think it's really important, if you're thinking of setting up a business, why are you doing it? If you're doing it for the money, fuck off.
Hello and welcome back to the Courageous Leaders podcast, brought to you by the Change Creators, where we strengthen leadership teams, creating environments where people and profits can grow together. I'm your host, Joanna Howes, and on today's episode, I am thrilled to welcome our guest, Dave Buonaguidi, also known as The Real Hackney Dave. After 35 years in advertising, founding agencies including St. Luke's, For Creative and Karmarama, Dave left the corporate world in 2019 to fulfill his passion to become a full-time artist. So let's get started. Dave, welcome to the show. It's brilliant to have you with us today.
Thank you very well. You say that. We don't know,
I know
what's going to happen yet, but it's thank you for having me. Yeah.
I am braced and ready.
Yeah.
And we're going to dive straight in. What's
Okay.
been a courageous moment for you?
I think courage is something that everybody has a different, not opinion of. I think if you ask a soldier, oh, that was a really courageous thing you did, ran up that hill and got shot at by a load of enemy people, they would probably go, well, that was my job. And so I don't look at anything I've ever done as courageous. I think it's just opportunities that arise and things happen as a result of your decision making. And I've never felt courageous in any way. I mean, you just do it. It just becomes an instinct thing. But I think if there was one thing, it was probably walking away or starting my life again, rebooting my life at 55 is... I wouldn't recommend it.
No?
No.
Why not?
Well, because old people don't, you're not meant to do that. You're supposed to, the way it's supposed to work is you start your career and you build your career and then you chill out and retire. Whereas starting again at 55 is borderline terrifying, but also the most exciting thing I've ever done, just because I'm doing something that I really, truly love now.
Yeah. So, because I'm actually seeing a lot of people now, this kind of 50 is the new rebirth and you don't give up. I'm seeing so many people now talking about finding new careers. I found my new one at 40.
Yeah.
When you look back, how different would you say you are from before you changed your life to the person you are now today?
Exactly the same.
Okay.
Exactly the same. I mean, I think there was always a huge amount of challenge and change in everything that I did. So, whether it was, I don't know whether it's a reaction to having immigrant parents who came over, and you're just always looking for opportunities and how do you climb that ladder, wherever that ladder goes. But when I started work, it was lots of startups and lots of interesting agents, and I would just try stuff. I'm going to go to a big agency and try that, or go back to a small one or start something up. And so it's always been there. I love that thing of new is way more interesting than stale.
Yeah.
And I can't resist it. And the good thing about what I do now is I get to do new every day, whereas every minute of every day. Whereas when I was working in the agency, everything was in corporate, it always just takes so long. You have so many people. And I used to use this analogy that was like when you worked on a project, it was like building a sandcastle on one side of the beach, and then your job was to get it to the other side of the beach without it collapsing. And there would always be something going wrong. A dog would run through it, a bit of aeroplane would fall on it, the wave would hit you, somebody would kick it. Yeah. And it was just the preciousness of every grain of sand. And as you moved it, it would dissolve, and you'd still learn to love it. And then you'd get to the end, and it bore no resemblance to what you'd started. But because you'd gone through a year process and spent a load of money trying to make it, it felt you sort of justified it. And that's what used to really kill me. The speed of everything was so slow. Whereas now, I love it. I lie in bed, come up with an idea, go into the studio, make it, try and sell it. If it doesn't sell, forget about it. If it does, I'll do something else. It's just constantly moving.
So it's on your terms.
Yeah, and I think that's what it's always been like in my career and in my life. It's always felt like just seize that little moment, what's happening, go for it, go for it, go for it. And so back to your thing about courage, it's sort of baked in with some people, I think.
Yeah.
You just do it.
Well, it sounds like it, because I think there's so many people they see the door, but they don't know how to walk through it.
Yeah, that really shocked me. And I talked to a lot of people about it. In fact, I've got a great artist I know who I'm trying to get him to open the door. And I said, mate, all I'm doing is I'm putting my hand on your hand and we're on the door handle and we're just going to turn it.
Yeah.
And he won't walk through it.
What do you think it is? What do you see?
I don't know. I don't know what it is, because he's also brilliant. His stuff is amazing. And he's got so much energy and he just does so much stuff, but he just doesn't want to go through the door. And I don't know if it's just that thing of, I don't know, sometimes you've just got to do it. Once you've done it once and you realise that the worst that's going to happen is nothing and the best that will happen is everything, then you just sort of go, well, why wouldn't I do it?
Because the two common things I see is normally fear of failure or fear of success.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never thought about fear of success.
Yeah.
How does that work?
It's a bit like, because I think I've suffered with it sometimes. It's like suddenly putting yourself out there a lot and it's going well and people recognise you. Like, how do I handle that? And because I think so often we beat ourselves up.
Cocaine is how you handle that. That's how all successful people deal with success.
Is that what they do?
Cocaine. Yeah, no, I've never thought about that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a weird one.
A lot of people have it without realising.
Wow.
It's like putting yourself out there and suddenly it works. It's like, can I handle that?
Yeah, I mean, I remember, and I was reading something, you were saying that you used to be very shy. I used to be, like, awful. Just couldn't walk into a room. You know, my idea of hell is going into a room with a bunch of strangers.
That
I'll literally
surprises
just go
me.
and, can't stand it.
Yeah.
I'll literally stand in the corner of the room. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to. It's completely awkward. But I think a lot of it is driven by when you find that thing that you like that is easy. All of that crap, all of those preconceptions, and all of that structure that you put around it in order to try and get through it. You know, I went through a career where I felt like I was acting for 35 years and having to go through a process every day. And couldn't be myself because I wasn't allowed to be. I had to be who they wanted me to be for that particular moment, and then I'd have a meeting 20 minutes later where I'd have to change it again. And now I find it much easier to just be yourself.
Be yourself.
And I think
Freedom,
that's very liberating. Very liberating.
Very freeing. And it is a bit of a process to get there, because I think I felt I wore a mask for years. And is that who I should be?
Yeah.
But I think sometimes it's then when you start taking that mask off, it's quite confronting. You're like, actually, who am I?
Well, it's kind of what we were talking about a minute ago, because you lose all sense of identity, and you don't really know. You lose all of that sense of being able to make the right decision, because you don't know. You know, instinctively you've got your gut tells you to do something, but then you're thinking, well, I've got employees, or I've got to please a client, or I've got whatever. All of the different knock-on effects that decision, if it goes badly, will have, and it paralyzes you.
Yeah. So you've set up companies, you've been very, very successful in what you did.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, on paper, it's successful. Why would you then say for you don't think it was?
Because, one, I don't work there anymore. If it had been successful, I'd still be there.
Would you? You don't think even if it's successful, you'd have got to a point where you go, actually, I hand it over, I've done my bit, carry on?
I don't know. I've never really thought about it. At the time, you just sit there and go, let's just set up an agency, or let's set up a business, and you do it. And I used to love the first 2 years of anything. I just loved it. It was just that chaos and the craziness of shared offices, or having your first little office and your first table that you bought from second-hand shop, or working in your kitchen. I love that. The minute it becomes serious and people start joining who wouldn't have joined when it was crazy, who join because it looks good on their CV, a little bit of me would die. So I don't really look at any of those things that I did as success. Really, I just sort of look. It was like a party that you might have been to, or that you might have hosted when you were a teenager. You just sort of go, yeah, that was a good party, but it's over.
If you're enjoying this episode and finding it insightful, I want to take a moment and remind you, if you haven't already, to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It's a small action, but it makes a big difference. Not only will you be the first to know when an episode drops, but it really helps us to continue to create this content for leaders like you. And I'd love to hear from you. So if you've got thoughts, questions, or ideas, feel free to drop them in the comments. Also, if you want to explore how my leadership training and coaching can support you and your team, then drop me a DM and we can have a call. Thanks so much. Now let's get back to the episode. So if we've got leaders listening to this now, and they're sitting there, if we're thinking about the people who are thinking of founding or starting their own thing up, from your experience of doing it, and where, you know, you're not seeing it at the moment as a big success. I see it very much to have the courage to do it in the first place and do it again and do it again.
Oh, there's something wrong with you if you want to do it.
It's amazing. Yeah.
What
would you pass on as your insights of what you took away from it?
Well, it was always, I mean, there's sort of two people who set up businesses. Vanity, who think that they're doing it because they want to say, I've set up a business like it's some cool thing, because it's not a cool thing.
No,
because it's completely absorbing.
Yep.
Every single fibre in your body will be possessed by it. It will ruin any relationship that you have. It will ruin your private life. Everything gets corrupted by this thing. And so then there are those people who just do that completely instinctively and don't worry about the consequences. But you can't stop it. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it.
Yep.
And so my advice would always be, why are you doing it? If you're doing it I had a conversation once with a kid at an event where they were fundraising, and it was all sort of little .com businesses. And this kid came up to me and he said, "Oh, are you an investor?" I said, "No, I'm not." But he had 5 sheets of A4 and he said, "This is my business." And he was about 20. He goes, "This is my business, and here's the blah blah blah, and here's the exit strategy." And I went, "Exit strategy? What the fuck are you talking about? You haven't even set a business up yet." He goes, "No, but it's important that you have to have." And I was like, "Is it?" Because I don't think the people who set up great businesses do it with a view that there's an exit strategy at the end. What they do is they do it to get away from their previous employee or their employer, or they do it to have it their own way, or they do it to change the world that they can't do in their current situation. So there's always an agenda. And I think it's identifying what that agenda is. You know, mine was, when I went into advertising is like, it's like biblical. You know, it's like, it hasn't changed ever.
No.
It's like 4 blokes, here's your initials, that's what you name your business. And it was just a game. And I think when we did it, it didn't help that the bloke I set up my first agency with, Narish, she's called Ramchandani. I'm Buonaguidi, so you could never name it after yourselves. You'd have to have a building 60 feet long to put your name on it. But it was more just like, why does everybody do it like that? Why don't we do it like this? And I think immigrants have a natural thing of like, I'm jumping in behind enemy lines. I don't know anybody. I don't have the DNA. I don't have any British DNA in me at all. Neither does Narish. And so we were just like, why would we do it like that? Why wouldn't you do it in a different way, or you know, quicker or better, or show more work, or do something that makes it a point of difference? And so success was like having lots. It wasn't about money. It was about having lots of clients and doing lots of good work for them, doing great work for them that would. And this was the killer bit, was for them, not for us. And I think we, you know, the agencies that I set up, we never entered awards. We didn't. It was none of that bullshit. It was because awards have got nothing to do with their business. It's everything to do with my business. How can you go to a client and go, "We want you to spend £1 million doing this thing because it's going to win an award for us"?
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody said that to me and I was a client, I'd go, "Fuck off."
Yeah.
I want you to sell my washing machines. And so it was always like, you can cut through the bullshit sometimes and just go, this is what we do, this is what we don't do. And then you kind of get that focus and you attract other people who feel the same.
I was going to say that. Where did you notice a point in any of the agencies you did where you could see it tipping over and that difference, suddenly it was losing that difference and it was becoming more how everyone else was doing it?
I remember I worked for an American bloke called Jay Chiat, and he said, how big do you get before you get bad? And his thing was, he reckoned it was between 30 and 50 people.
Oh, that early?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he said, when you don't know people's names and you don't know what their marital status is, or you don't know where they live, or you don't know, he said, that's when you lose it. And also, if you get to 30 people, you're probably 3, 4, 5 years in.
Yep.
So you've survived that turtles getting off the beach. You know, so you're in water. And you know, you're allegedly successful. If you've survived that, you're doing all right. And I think then a different thing happens, which is you attract people who go, "Ooh, I'll go and work there because they've got some nice clients and they do some good work." So all the hard work's it's been built, and all they want to do is come in and take advantage of that. And I remember every time I left an agency, so St. Luke's and Karmarama, Karmarama was different because I took it really, really personally. But it was St. Luke's. We'd set it up, and after about 4 years, I remember looking around, just going, "God, I'd never employ any of these people."
Sad, isn't it?
Or I wouldn't even if I was outside, I wouldn't want to work here.
Yeah.
And the minute that penny dropped, I just went, "I'm off. Just
You're
go." And it's a really simple decision then. So it's not courage, it's like self-preservation really. It's just like, right, fuck it, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Was there any part of you going, I'm going to cling on and get it back to how it was? Or you could just see it was too
with
far?
With Karmarama, we had that because Karmarama, I left after 14, 15 years, and it was, the first couple of years were interesting. Year 4, I had a fallout with the bloke I set it up with, Narish. He left. We got down to, I don't know, we had like 8 or 9 clients and 30 people, and we lost all the clients except for one. And we had to go back down and start again. And I remember thinking, do you go again? Because it's a bit like, when you were a kid doing the Triple A's and the 1,500 metres, and you think, I've just won the race. And you go, no, you got one more lap. And you're like, oh my God. And then you got to go again. It's hard. Yeah. But I took it really personally, and I just thought, no, you know what, fuck it. Now let's do it again, but we'll do it the way I want to do it rather than the way that we did it, which was different. And it's hard, but the challenge becomes, the grudge or the agenda becomes the gyroscope. So winning a bit of business is you proving to yourself that you didn't go down with the ship.
Yeah.
And that's what, it's a personal thing, because you sort of go, there's nothing more shameful than setting up a business, doing all right, and then it crash and burning. You slam it into the first tree on the first lap. You just look like an idiot.
Yeah.
Whereas now I don't really have any problem with that. I don't mind it. But it's because, I do it on a daily basis. I come up with an idea, I make it, nobody likes it, I just crash and burn. It's and move on. Just get on with the next thing. Yeah. So it's kind of minimizing that, but also learning to deal with failure is a big thing. And I suppose that comes back to that thing you were saying about fear of success, fear of failure. Once you've worked in any corporate business for 5 years, you've had every possible variation of slap and punch you're ever likely to receive. So you just roll with it.
Yeah. So did you find then going into the art, did you go through a moment where fear of failure came back because it was a new thing you were doing? Or had you already got the punches and the slaps, it was all right?
No, I was pretty toughened, once I'd set up Karmarama, St. Luke's, 4 Creative, I set up it when I was at Channel 4, and then did another one called Unlimited Inc., which was just a very, very small one where we latched onto startups and we were helping them get their product ready for money raises and stuff like that. So I was used to the kind of drama of it all. It didn't really faze me at all. But it was more that thing, as we said at the beginning, when I decided to pull the plug on the whole lot. So when I think I was 50 and I walked out of Karmarama and literally just walked out. My resignation was, I'm off, Dave.
That hurt?
No, didn't. Okay. It felt great. I mean, I lost everything. I was led to believe that all of my equity and all of the money, the shares that I had would all be looked after, because I knew that none of them were doing it because they wanted to set up an agency. They were doing it to sell it, which they did to Accenture. And I got tiny amount while they all walked off. They took all my shares and basically, and that hurt because suddenly that was like not my retirement, but that was like, oh fuck, hold on a minute, I'm 50. I'm not going to get a job. I've burnt every bridge. I can't go back into advertising because I don't want to work for somebody else. I always like working for myself. And have I got the energy to do that again? I've done it 4 times. I'm just running out. I've got no juice. And then I got a divorce at the same time, a couple of years later, which just punctuates everything. And then you suddenly go, shit, this is serious. I had some money tucked away because I don't have any glamorous lifestyle and I don't do coke. But it was more just that thing of, oh fuck, if this doesn't work, I'm dead.
Okay.
Properly fucked. And it was so, but the good thing is I've got lots of experience in marketing and product and being creative, and so you just combine all of that very quickly and work just it out. For it. Yeah.
Do you think sometimes so I remember when I changed, they said you've got to cut your plan B. So you just got to go all in. So as I just quit, I walked away from advertising. It wasn't like, I'd try and do that and do this on the side. I just had to go all in. They say actually sometimes when you've got to go do it for survival or there isn't a plan B, it is easier to change. Do you think there's anything in that?
Who is it? Was it when the conquistadors invaded somewhere in South America and they just burnt all the ships? You're not going home. There's no plan B. Make it work. Yeah. And I think that if you're dumb enough to want to step away, and I say dumb in the nicest way possible because it is hugely traumatic. Yeah. Even when it's good, it's still traumatic. But a light comes on in your head and you can see. It's like when you walk into a derelict house, you go, if you're like that, you can go, oh, I can see this and I can see that, and I'll do it. And you can just see other people just get dumbfounded by the rubble and they can't see it. Whereas I think certain people who are often people who set up businesses can visualize it. And when you visualize it, it makes it so much easier to walk towards it, because it's manifesting, or whatever they call it. You know, it's not that difficult. But I think some people just find it easier than others, and that's why I think it's really important if you're thinking of setting up a business, why are you doing it? If you're doing it for the money, fuck off.
Oh yeah.
If you're doing it to make your world better, make you happier, make your customers and your clients and your staff happier, go for it. Because that's the one thing I loved about the places that we set up. They were always like the last place that you would work before you went off and did what you really wanted to do. Okay. And I love that, because you just got crazy, desperate people who just suddenly found a home. It was like the Garden of Eden. And more importantly for Naresh and I, we set up Karmarama and St. Luke's to create nice places for us to work, because we didn't like working anywhere else. So it was a selfish thing, but it was driven by, we're not alone. There are lots of people, clients included, who want to have people who want to care for them and provide a good service for a good price. I mean, it's not rocket science. No,
it seems like it's a core thread in you. Just do the right thing. Let's do the right thing by people.
It's because I don't have any... The only DNA I've got is Danish and Italian. Now, I wouldn't say Italians are the most trustworthy people, but I think that my dad's a restaurateur. You know, my mum's an artist. I think that there's something about, and when you're a dad, you want to look after people. There's something about looking after and doing the right thing, because it's like, the thing I never really understood was, and I experienced it when I went to Channel 4. I think if the BBC had said, do you want to come and work, I would have said no. If the ITV had said that, I would have said no. When I went to Channel 4, it was different. It was a brand that meant something to me. Okay. That they were a challenger brand. They like to create trouble, be first, and sort of create noise and do the right thing, offer people an alternative. And I found that very inspiring. But there's something really weird that happens, is that we have all of these values that we have as humans and mums and dads. And then when we walk through the door at the office, you go, right, arsehole mode. And I'm going to fuck over him, and I'm going to rob him, and I'm not going to pay him, and I'm not going to do this. And it just becomes second nature. It's a way, it's being groomed. You know, you get corrupted by the people that you work for. And because everybody needs to have a job, ultimately, to pay their rent or whatever it is, you step in line because you don't want to get fired. And so you end up making very weird decisions that I think sometimes some people are more easily corruptible than others, and other people, and often again people who set up their own businesses, if they do it for the money, then that's their shout. But if they do it to create an alternative that's going to make them feel better, then do it. I mean, you know, I used to work with Anita Roddick when she had the Body Shop, and it was like, God, it was mesmerising. You walk into a room and you see this room full of energy, loads of ideas, looks after her staff, looks after her suppliers, builds her business around the success of the people she works with. It made you think, why is nobody else doing this? Because she was the only one. Everyone else was still squirting sauce into rabbit's eyes and killing monkeys and stuff. But she's like, no, we don't do any. We don't do animal testing. We do it differently. So when we set up St. Luke's and Karmarama, it was like, well, we don't enter awards. And everyone in the ad industry was like, oh my God.
How can you not?
It's like you've just desecrated the Pope, you know. It's like, well, it's not that big a deal. It's like, everyone else does it. We don't do it. And so I like that thing of find a reason and then just do it.
And how did that, instead of doing it differently in terms of setting up a company, how did that do it differently and doing the right thing come through in how you led people? Because I think that sometimes one thing is setting up a business, and suddenly when you look at these people and go, oh, wow, they're all looking at me for the decisions and the direction. How did you develop as a leader?
I mean, I didn't. Naresh and I were 28 when we got given the job at Chiat Day, and Jay Chiat never really came over to London. We had a tiny little London satellite office, and we were 28, and we weren't even that, I don't even think we were that good. We just happened to be working at Hal Henry at the time, which was a great agency, and we did a comedy night at Jongleurs or something, or the Comedy Store in Leicester Square, where they had a bit of ad-libbing stuff with a load of other people from advertising, and we were up against some really, it wasn't a competition, but they were just sort of fun and games. It was like, you know, whose line is it anyway type thing. And we did that, and some bloke was in the audience and saw us and said, why don't we talk to them? So he talked to us, and he said, do you want to do the job? And we went, yeah. And I remember talking to Naresh about it, and he just said, listen, everyone's had a go at this job, and they've all fucked it up. If we fuck it up, we're just another body, another two bodies on a pile of bodies. No one's going to care. But if we do really well, we get all the credit. And it was that mentality that I had, which is just like, well, we got nothing to lose.
Why not?
We were on 25 grand at Howell Henry, and they were going to double our money. 40. I think we got 50 grand to be the creative directors of a London agency. We were like, fucking hell, it's a load of money. But when you're 28, you don't know anything. And the best bit of advice I got from Jay was he just said, you're still young. Don't screw the crew. Don't do drugs with them. Don't drink with them. If you do drugs and drink with them, you've got to go harder and longer than all of them put together, and then be in before them in the morning. And I was like, well, I don't drink, and I don't do drugs. But I tried it for about a week. And I just suffered so badly, and I just thought, no, and also it's that thing of, once somebody's seen you drunk, you can't have a serious conversation with them. Once they've seen your bumhole, it's really difficult for anybody while you're reviewing their work for them to look at you seriously while you're being sick in the or whatever, and so I've always had that barrier, which is just, I don't do that.
Which is a clear boundary, isn't it? It's
and I think
isn't okay.
It's like with kids. I didn't have kids at the time, but when you're 28, you've got to do something that is. We had people that were working for us that were considerably more experienced and older than us, and probably better than us. But it was just, we were put in the chair, and that people are looking for vulnerabilities, and they're looking for moments that they can split you up, or they do. And so you have to. And so we were a very close unit in those days, and protected ourselves from it, and sort of made it a thing that would, and we didn't do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And it just separates the two aspects of the life, because I think certainly in advertising, where there's any excuse for a party, it's easy to join in.
Oh, very easy.
And,
been there, done it.
I mean, I don't think advertising is unique in that way at all, but it was just putting down clear, and then having rules like, well, we don't enter awards, and if you don't like it, fuck off.
Yeah.
We do what we do is for our clients. They employ us to improve their business, and we do the best job possible. And if it's doing a really simple thing, then do the right thing for them. Don't just go, I want to make a 90-second cinema commercial when they've only got enough money for a 2-page ad. So it was just be responsible. Think of it like your business. And in a way, that's why when we did St. Luke's, and we did it as a co-op and equal ownership, it was like, I want you to think this is your business, even though you're an employee. You might be a junior creative or a marketing manager. I want you, when you walk in and you see somebody standing in reception and they're standing around, I want you to go, this is my business, this is my house. Hi. Do you want a cup of tea? Yeah. Grab yourself a seat, grab a paper, and I'll find out who you're looking for. Yeah. And treat it like that. Doesn't work. Because I'm like that.
Yeah.
I'm like that. But a lot of people aren't. They just go, just give me my money. I want to come in at 9:31 and go home at 5:31 and take the money. Because
I'm wondering, when you start with that small, so I've just finished the Unreasonable Hospitality book, which I just think is fantastic to look at how a team kind of comes together to the goal.
Who's done that?
It's Will Guardidi. I'm terrible doing names. I've got to do your name later.
Yeah.
Guardidio.
Right.
Unreasonable Hospitality. It's EMP restaurant. I highly recommend. I think you'd really enjoy the book, because my dad was a chef in a restaurant. So I'm really interested in how hospitality translates over to teams, especially your Michelin star ones. Like the way they work, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Absolutely
it's
phenomenal.
exactly the same thing.
Yeah. But I guess they do stay a bit smaller, and I think it is that thing when you get a bit bigger, and then if you lose track of who you're hiring, because that's when I think the company values as such become just words on a wall.
Well, it gets lost when you lose why you're doing it. Yeah. And this is one of the things with, I've got a mate of mine who's got a restaurant, and he's set in a denim factory, and it's only open on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So you walk into a factory, which is all full of jeans.
Wow.
And then he's got this amazing, go and check it out. It's called Slow Burn in Walthamstow. My brother helped him set it up, and I love it in there just because there's a bit of theatre that you walk through a working factory, which I was in yesterday buying denim. It's the weirdest thing. This is my life. But I was talking to him a while ago and sort of saying, how's it going? He goes, Matt, I'm so stressed. I'm making every fucking sauce and I'm cooking everything. And there's a small team of about 8 people. And I said, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to, in 5 years' time, do you want to be going on holiday to South America with your wife and kids and go into Slow Burn at Heathrow Airport and go, oh, I set that place up. don't work there anymore because I've got given. I said, that's one option. And that's easy because you just hire a load of allegedly good people and you build it, and then somebody come along and give you a load of money for it, take it off your hands. And he was like, no, I don't want to do that. And I said, good, because you're doing a really good job here. The problem you've got is you're straining. You don't know what to do next. And it's like, do I continue doing this for 20 years and just make my money every month? Or do I build something and then give it to somebody? But it's always the agenda. Why are you doing it? And when you're doing it for a reason that is more than just I want to make some money is like number 10 on the list, and it will come up at some stage. But when you grow and then you get a big client that suddenly requires you hiring 10 people, not 2 people, or you have to get bigger space, and then if you get bigger space you've got to have more clients because you've got to pay the rent. Everything has a knock-on effect. And I think that's one of the realities that a lot of people don't realise, is that it's the stress of, and in a way that's also why I will never have an employee ever again, because you're only ever working for yourself when it's you. The minute you have an employee, you're no longer working for yourself, you're working for them. And it's a horrible thing to say, but
it's true.
It's that squeaky little wheel in the corner who's going, I want my LinkedIn profile to look better. I want more money so I can get a car like my mate who works at Accenture's got. And it's just like...
the different responsibility.
No. Yeah.
Yes. Just thinking that when you're talking about, when you win the client, I know you work with founders, as you said, but helping them set up. Something just coming up a lot in my world at the moment is the challenge people are having in a founder-led business. As a founder-led business is growing, where the founder then kind of wants to empower people to do well, but won't step away, and it's still very much their decisions, and the tension that then getting created. What's your experience of that, or your advice for anyone listening to going through this?
Very bad experience of it. I mean, I'm exactly the same. You build your garden, and then you walk around the garden, and then suddenly you go, oh, it's so big, this garden, and then you employ a load of other people to come around and do it, and the first thing you're doing is following them around and going, what are you doing to my garden? You just can't deal with it. It's really, really difficult. And I think it's just an age-old thing of like, unless there are these people who set up a business to take control and then don't want to have control of it, it's impossible. You can't do it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what the advice is, because I've never been very good at it. I mean, I had a situation when we set up St. Luke's, and we stepped aside to try and to create a division within the agency that was working with clients in a more, doing your ads is like right now. I'd like to be more of a consultancy where you're sitting down going, what's the problem that you see in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Who's your competitor that you have now in 5, 10? What do you want to do in 5, 10? That's the thing that I love, is that clear field thinking where you're when it's functional, and it's just like, I need a 30-second ad tomorrow for no money. I've got loads of people who can do that. Yeah. And we stepped aside, and then we employed 2 very good creatives, but it just all changed overnight. It suddenly became their disco. Right. And the values that they had were different to ours. They wanted to do awards, and I just, and that's when I left. Yeah, just couldn't do it. But it's a huge problem. I don't know how. I don't know any successful founders. I think the only way you become a successful founder is when you, like Richard Branson, for example. And I don't know whether he's a successful one. I'm sure he is, but it's constantly setting up new things to distract. Or, I become the boss of Virgin, but got Virgin Air. He's not the boss of Virgin Airways. He's the boss of Virgin. Yeah. And so you can do Virgin Records, Airways, pensions, money, whatever it is, and you just hire people to run those little subdivisions. So you're still the Führer, but you've got lots of
you can let go of
generals underneath you who can run it. And, then that just becomes a thing of finding competent people who aren't going to do it for 2 years and then leave. You want people who are going to run it and build it, because that's their DNA, and you just recognise that. But I've never been very good at that. I've always been awful at that. Was there someone that knew how to, this is going to sound weird, so I can't think of the right language, work you? But I don't mean manipulate me, but just knew how to get the best out of you so you could be that founder, you could lead, and there was that person who just understood it and got it? When I was an employee, every boss I ever worked for, because I've got that immigrant DNA of work hard. My rule was turn up really early, turn up before your boss, leave. Even if it's like your boss is there till 9, leave at 1 minute past 9. But just be seen, be there, turn up. Because if they see you walking in at 10:30 with a fucking bacon sandwich and a coffee, I know how I would feel. I'd go, mate, why don't you just hop off, go home. And so every boss that I ever worked for, the spectre of being fired, especially with an Italian dad, you go home and say, I've been fired to your dad, with the Italian dad, you get buried. And so I always had that built in, which is like, mate, you've got to do the right thing here. Do the right thing. You're being paid to do a certain job. Excel. And don't just do enough. Try and excel. So, when you start work, I started on $4,000, which is nothing, But I had a vision that next year I'll be on 8, or the year after that I'll be on 15. So it was always how do you double your money every year?
Feeling like you were progressing.
That's like human nature, is you want to get better.
I remember I was listening to something you did yesterday where you were talking about that there's this pleaser part of you and you wanted to be liked. How much do you think that helped your growth, or where did it maybe get in the way sometimes?
Well, I think it helps in a way that, so then an agenda is that I want to look after people and I want to do the best for them. And when you're working with clients, when a client comes in and he's been working with corrupt agencies for a long time, or corrupt corporations for a long time, where all they want to do is take all his money, and you suddenly get, I'm really interested in your opinion. I'd like to work with you. What's the real problem you've got? Let's work it out. And then you take genuine pride, which I used to take, that when you did something that worked for the client, and when they told you it's done really well, I'm sharing in his success. That makes me feel good.
Yeah.
So it's like my dad, when he had his restaurant, somebody comes in hungry and then you give them the food that they want and they walk out and then they come back. It's a really simple formula. The problem is when you're too nice, when you're too caring, your staff look at you like, people would say the most successful ad agencies are the ones that did the best work. Now, to do the best work, you're not nice. You're doing the best work for you, because who judges what the best work is? The ad industry. Yep. And that's the awards industry, which is a corrupt mess. And so I think you get this weird thing where the agenda shifts. And I really liked working with clients and going, look, you don't have to spend all this money. Just do this. And working with really good strategists as well, and getting the engine parts together to create the right machine that would take the client where they should go. But when you're too nice, or when you care about people, and I just found it overwhelming. It's like when I had staff and I cared about them. They were like my kids. I really liked my staff, a lot of them. And I was always sitting there talking to, what do you want to do? What's your ambition? Do you want to be a creative director, or do you just want to be a heavyweight team? And it's like, or do you want to be a head of strategy? Work out how to do it, help them, advise them, because I got exposed to it at 28, which was just like, right, now you're on a road, where do you go? And it's very young, but you have to learn really quick. And so I love that thing of working with people and talking to them and finding out, what do you really want to do? I had lots of creatives who go, I want to be a creative director. And you go, come on, I'll give you some clients. And you give them the clients, and then 2 weeks later, they're in your office pooing their pants going, I can't do it. I can't do 3 things at once. And I'm like, mate, if you're good, you can do 10 things at once. You've just got to learn to separate it all. But if you don't want to do it, be honest about it. Work out why you're doing it and what you want to do. And if it's just be a senior team, just tell me, be a senior team, and I'll give you some nice things to do every year. But it's that. And the minute you get soft, you just lose. I just found it exhausting, and I just cared about everybody else. And like I said to you earlier, now I'm doing what I'm doing. The minute I went, right, that's it, hit the nuclear button on my life, no more marriage, no more jobs, I'm starting again, and I'm going to do it on my own terms. And I'm as caring as I was before. I'm as generous as I was before, but only for me and the people in my very tight circle. I won't have any employees. I get up, I do what I've got to do. I have as much fun, and the most fun I've ever had in my entire life. And I go home to bed and I forget about it, and I wake up in the morning, I do it all over again.
It's lovely.
It's brilliant.
It sounds really.
Is
there any part of you that misses the old life?
I love all the bants. I know I'm going to sound like some tosser off Love Island, but I just love that thing of, when people came in the morning and you were going, oh yeah, what'd you get up to? And you talk and you sort of go, do you see that thing? And you chat. And I know that the workplace is no longer like that. That kitchen moment when you get a coffee or you're waiting for the kettle to boil. There was something about seeing people you hadn't seen, and I genuinely like being around people, but also I can't stand people. So, when I'm in my studio, which is in a basement, I get really, really lonely, but I end up doing a lot of work. And then when I go home, I live in this really nice little Muse street, and it's all full of artists, and they're always sitting outside. So I just go over and chat to them, but I don't linger. I have a chat and introduce, and then go into my house and sit in the dark. I don't know what it is. I like having space. Yeah. That space and that moment to depressurize. And you know, my life is not pressurized at all anymore.
Yeah.
But it's also, I understand that when I used to do that in my pressurized job, it was really important because I had to do it to survive. Whereas now, I just do it to fucking just, you know, cup of tea on the sofa. It's just great sometimes.
Just a quick pause to ask for your help. We received wonderful messages on how the podcast is supporting you as leaders and helping to normalise the challenges you face. To help us reach and support more leaders, we'd love your help. If you haven't already, please can you follow or subscribe on the platforms you watch or listen to us on, as it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. And now let's get back to the episode. I just think you are one of the most interesting people I've met. You're going to go, what?
I don't know,
I just sitting here listening to you, I just find it incredibly interesting, you know, that for me, I see that courage to walk through all the doors you've walked through, you know, to set up 4 things, to disrupt, to stand for what you believe in, to care at the same time, and then to blow it up and go, do you know what? I'm going to have to just like figure it out, and then I'm going to adapt to this new way of living.
Yeah, well, it did.
It's
and
fascinating.
It sort of reminded me. Somebody spoke a couple of years ago. Said, "God, you're so brave doing that." And I said, "It was like when I worked in the corporate world, and it was my agency. So you'd sort of think when you've got your hand on the steering wheel, you're in control. You're completely out of control." And it felt like I was standing in a burning building, and it was like I've got 2 options. I can't see how high I am. I don't know where the floor is. It's all smoke everywhere. I either stay here and burn, or I jump out the window. And without even thinking about it, just jumped out. And I've done that quite a few times with different agencies. But certainly with the, getting the divorce and walking out of your biggest founding business is catastrophic. Yeah. Catastrophic. And it was like, I've never felt so raw, so terrified, but also so invigorated. You know, it's like all the businesses I've set up have always been in the middle of recessions. You know, it was like every business I set up was in a recession. And I love that thing of like everything's up in the air.
Survival.
Everyone hunkers down and hides, and you can just go scurrying around and find all the hazelnuts. And when I went full time as an artist, that was in 2020. You know, it was like matching numbers, 2020 vision, see clearly, and then 2020 happened. You know, but it was the best thing that ever happened.
It seems that thing when your back's against the wall.
Yeah, you find out what you're made of.
You flourish and you find out what you're capable of.
And you just go, shit or bust, I've got nothing to lose. The whole world is fucked. Yeah. It's not like, I would really hate it if the 20 artists that I know were all doing really, really well and I was doing really badly. I'd be in a really bad spot. But I just sort of went, all the artists I knew at the time all took the money and went off. They left. And I was like, I haven't been doing it long enough to get any money. Yeah. And I got the virus really early and I just thought, well, what do I do? Yeah. But the whole world was fucked. Yeah. So it's just like, well, I just feel like Will Smith in that, you know, I am legend. I'm the only bloke around. Yeah. And I just wander about and do whatever I want. And I had the most fun ever.
A good time.
It was great.
So if there's someone I know would be listening to this now going, they just know their life needs to change, but they just don't know the how. What's that one bit of advice you'd probably give them?
Be systematic about it. I mean, when you're young, you don't know shit from sugar. So you don't know what you're doing. You stumble into stuff and then you realise, oh, that was a minefield. I'll have to reverse back out and do it again. When you're older, you've got experience. If you're old and you're older and you've made money and you've got a career, then you would have had to have followed a certain set of rules, which is turn up on time, do what's required, do more than what's required, and keep working hard. Yep. And that will pay off. And then if you've got that luxury that you're sitting on top of the building and you can get that fresh air and you go, I really don't want to do this anymore, then apply the same logic that you did to your earlier career to your own career. But the thing that really sits at the heart of that is, what's your purpose? Yeah. You know, what is that thing? What's that chewy little bit of goo in the middle of you that is the thing that you love doing? Be really honest. It's funny, we had I'm going to run off another story, but we had 2 little kids, and I've told this story as well. 2 little kids came into the studio, they were like 10. And I love intimidating children because they don't fight. And I said, what do you want to do? And he said, I don't know. And I said, what about you? And he goes, I don't know. And they ran off. And I said, well, I'm going to come back in 15 minutes and I want to know what you want to do. And then 15 minutes later, I said, right, you, come here. What do you want to do? And he goes, I really want to be a photographer. I said, oh, good. Nice. That was easy. And what about you? He goes, I want to be in a rock band. I went, great. You can go. But it was just really nice. And nobody does that to anybody, but nobody does it to themselves. All the decisions I've made have just been this stumbling through the mist thinking I just want to be creative. I'm no good at anything else. So I just know I want to make stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd make ads, or I'd make things, or I'd make TV commercials, whatever it is, posters. But now I make basically ads. It's words and a picture. So I'm doing what I do, but it's just fine-tuned it. And it took 40 years of fine-tuning and pain and fun and drama and ecstasy to get me to find a place where I'm doing it. But I think everybody has got that one thing, and there'll be that one thing that you can stick to, the thing that you do in your career that you're really good at because you're working. So there must be something you're good at. So if it's finance, find the thing that you love and bolt finance onto it, and you should be okay. I mean, find the thing that I love, which is being creative, and then having business experience or marketing experience, which is just advertising what I do. I mean, it's like, and I think that's it. It's finding those two things. Now, a lot of people go, I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. You know, I just want to set up a business. Well, then don't set up a business.
No, got to find what the thing's
find
got to
that thing
drive
you love.
Yeah.
And everybody has it.
Yeah.
And then bolt it to the thing that you're good at, that you've been doing for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And then just let them go off. And
I'd also add in, because I'm trying to think about the change I did, because obviously I went from an operations director to a coach. So I could use all that operational experience and what I learned in business.
Invaluable.
But what was key is I needed to go and train as a coach. I also did a year's sales course. I did a year's marketing course because that's what I did. And I think that the willingness to re-educate yourself and unlearn some stuff as well.
And that is the thing that separates great people from average people or good people, because it's a very fine line. Putting the grift in, the shift and grifting and making it happen. You know, I had to. That's what when I walked out of Karmarama, they put me on gardening leave for a year. I wasn't allowed to do anything in advertising, and I was like, God, what am I going to do? Yeah. And I thought I want to go and learn how to sculpt, to screen print, and save a life. And I just happened to do the screen printing thing first, and went, fuck the other two, I'll do this. And it was because when I walked into the studio that day, and I saw other idiots like me wearing the same dirty clothes, looking lost. I just felt I'm at home now. Now this is where I should be, and I've been living in a world where like a mannequin for 35 years, and I couldn't be me. And it's finding that thing and then understanding that the longer you leave it, the more hard work. It's like going to the gym when you've come out of a coma.
Yeah, it's harder.
Now I've got to learn how to walk again, and I've got to learn how to run again. I've got to be fit. Well, you either do it or you don't, and if you don't, you're fucked. And
it's not impossible to do as you get older, but it's a bit harder.
But it's a bit harder physically and mentally. But it's much easier because you've got all the experience. You've experienced all of that stuff that you can smell bullshit a mile off. Yeah. So, you know, as younger people stumble into stuff, he seems to be a really nice bloke. I just trust him. Whereas, you know, when you get over 35, you've experienced, especially in any corporate world, you've met every kind of tosser you're ever likely to meet. Yeah. So and every end point. So you become really good at going, nah. And I think that saves you a huge amount of time. Yep. And it's, as you get older, using your time wisely and being professional is the thing that I love. Because when I work with galleries, you know, just do it on time, do it early. Yeah. And they love that because they're trying to make money out of you.
Be respectful.
And if you're just one of those smoky artists who just goes around on a bong all day long and you just, I'll do it right at the last minute. Yeah. No one wants to work with you and you won't sell any stuff. And I know I've got to make money. Yeah. And so to set up a business, you've got to be international level professional. Yeah. On every level.
And that's where I'd highly recommend that book, Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yeah, I'll have a read of that.
And then I think you said earlier, just to bring it forward, is being willing to fail. Is a big thing. Well, just give it a go.
You're not going to die.
Just give it a go.
You're not going to die. Yeah. You know, think of all the stupid things that you've done in your past life.
That's when you've been there, done it.
That's half the time. They're the best stories.
Oh, yeah, and stop one about what everyone else thinks as well.
Yeah, don't worry about
Seriously,
that.
They're not thinking about you.
It does make it easier. Like, I'm 60 now, and honestly, I've just couldn't give a flying fuck.
The minute you let that go, I'm not completely gone yet, but you just sort of go, why? I think a lot of stuff I'm thinking at the moment is, you'll talk about time management. I think so much now is about energy management. And if I'm going to I don't want to give my energy away to things that aren't going to help me, aren't going to serve me, worried about what someone else thinks. That's energy I need to keep.
When you make a decision, like for me, it was removing toxicity from my life. Toxicity is just the most draining and the most toxic thing, because it just corrupts everything. You never relax. You're always stressed and weirded out by everything. The minute I did that, and only do things that I like, only do things that I love with people I like, and it's amazing how it's just permanent sunshine.
Lovely,
somebody asked me, some bloke was doing a thing for, he's asking people out of 10, how do you feel? And I was like, 15. He was like, no. I said, no, I do. Like, feel 20. I've got nothing.
Yeah.
There's no stress. There's no drama. Anything that happens, as you get older, anything that happens that's remote, you just deal with it. And that's part of it. It's a brilliant thing that you can do, is don't let it get on top. Just deal with it. Get it out. Get on to the next thing.
That's beautiful. On that note, I'm going to go to the last question.
Oh, yeah.
We kind of covered it in a little bit. But if you go back to younger Dave, when
God.
young Dave had someone go, what are you going to do?
I saw a picture of younger Dave the other day. Yeah.
We'll get that in the video. Young Dave coming up. We'll get it in.
Oh, Jesus.
What advice would you pass on to young Dave after all the experience you now have?
It's not going to be easy. You're going to experience... I mean, to be honest, if I was the same age I was in the picture that I'll send you, I think I was at St. Luke's, and it was, or Chiat Day probably, and it was the first serious job of responsibility that I had. And I'm just an idiot. I look at all of the good things and the horrific things, and there've been plenty, in equal measure. But that's the nature of setting up a business. You're either on fire or you're up to your neck in water. There's nothing in between. That's when you sleep. But I would do it exactly the same, because the way I look at it now is the 15 that I'm living now is only a 15 because of all of the zeros and the minus 15s that I was experiencing for the last 35, 40 years, on and off. And it wasn't always like that, but I would do it exactly the same. So I would just say, just crack on, trust it, it'll happen, it'll all be all right. And I think that's one of the things that is a mum and dad thing, is it's all going to be all right. I think if you trust your instinct, and your instinct gets more finely tuned and developed and better as you get older and you experience more stuff, it will work out. Trust it. Nobody makes constantly stupid decisions. Some people make horrific decisions that they can never recover from. But I think a lot of the time, if you've got a bit of ethics and you've got a work ethic and you are quite a nice person, it'll all work out. But I think there's a way of getting it to work out a little bit quicker. Find that thing that you love and be really honest about what it is, and honest about why you want to do it, what your purpose is. I know exactly what my purpose is. And the end point of that purpose.
Can I ask you to ask, because anyone's sitting there going, how do you articulate your purpose?
Well, we used to say, when the world's gone to shit, what's the thing that you go down to Parliament with a poster on a stick? Your purpose is the thing that you love doing and why you want to do it, and there's always a bigger always a bigger reason for that. Mine is I want to make art to make people feel good.
Nice.
And I've got no interest in just drawing pictures of birds on trees. It doesn't mean anything to me. I want, when people look at my work, or when they buy my work, I want them to feel good. I don't want them to feel ripped off. So I'll sell stuff for 20 quid. I'll give stuff away for free, and I sell stuff in some galleries for a lot more money. But I want them to feel happy, and I want them to look at it, and I want that thing that they look at to make them feel good. I want everything to be a positive battery, not a sponge. And so I know what my purpose is. But a lot of people, it's like when you get a little corrupted or sidetracked by money, money is not a purpose. Traveling the world and experiencing the world, that's a purpose. You just have to make money to be able to do it. But it's, it's doing that, and there's a lot of it is self-analysis, and the problem is that people don't like doing that. It's terrifying, and normally you have to pay a psychologist or a mentor quite a lot of money to unpack all of that kind of stuff. And I'm sure that you find that out of 10 people that you speak to, probably 9.5 of them won't do anything about it, because it's crippling and it's
scary.
It's so exposing.
Confronting, exposing. Because then once you actually figure it out,
and it also
do something
requires
with
a lot of work.
An action.
And action. When you get to 40, oh no, I'm not supposed to be doing that. I'm supposed to be having my feet up on the table and getting people bringing me cups of tea all day. It's like, no. And
keep
so,
working.
I mean, I would do it exactly the same way, but I would just trust it, trust the process.
And is there any final words you'd like to share before we close?
I don't think my experience is unique in any way at all. I mean, I think it resonates with a lot of people because we're all going through the same thing. We make decisions in our teens that will affect us until our 40s and 50s. And by the time you get to your 30s, 40s, you've got commitments like, rent, mortgage, kids, whatever. And suddenly you find yourself in a rut and you're committed. And I just think it's the thing I just love when I sit down with people and you go, what is it you really want to do? And then all you're doing is just shining a light or giving them the key, and then just go, no, and just open it, go for it.
Yeah.
And I think everybody's the same. Everybody has got something. Yeah. Even the most cynical, money crazed, breadheads there are out there. They will still have that thing that they love doing. Fucking find it. I mean, it's the Bukowski thing of find the thing you love and let it kill you. I mean, it's like it's the most fun and the simplest life that you will ever have.
Sounds wonderful.
It is amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was an absolute joy. And I could keep going, but we do need to stop now.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
But thank you for everyone listening, and we'll see you next week. If you've been loving our Courageous Leaders podcast, please can I ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support helps keep the quality content coming and reach listeners like you that we can then really, really help. We fund this podcast ourselves, so to have your support means that we can keep delivering week on week. Thank you.